All my life, I've been grinding all my life. All my life, grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle, pay the price. Wanna slice, throw the dice, that's why. All my life, I've been grinding all my life.
Welcome to another episode of Inside the Grind. I am your host, Serafina Maulupe. We have an amazing guest with us today. He's a legend. I'm excited to finally have him on. He is a dual league international, having represented both New Zealand and Samoa in his 14 years as a professional rugby league player. He is a World Cup Nines and Tri-Nations winner with New Zealand, has received multiple NRL awards, has captained New Zealand, and has played in 3 World Cups, most recently as captain Toa Samoa in 2008. He retired as New Zealand's all-time leading try scorer at international level. He is the only player in the history of rugby league to have topped the try-scoring charts in both the Southern NRL and Northern Super League Hemispheres elite rugby league competitions. He retired in 2009 and was employed as the NRL Education and Wellbeing Programs Manager. He has been invited to present to many elite athletes and organizations like the NFL, MLB, MLA, NBA, MLS, NBA, and WWE. He has done a lot, as you can see, but I'm so grateful that he is here. I would love to introduce Nigel Vagana.
Hey, thanks for that tip, Fina. Sounds like I've done a lot of work over the years.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have, you have done a lot of work, Nigel, and I just want to thank you again just for being here, taking the time to be here. I'm so excited to have you here.
That's good to be here. I mean, I'm not there, but I'm
but
still
yeah,
here in Auckland, man. I'm in Auckland, New Zealand, so I'll tell you all. So still down under here, and you're up. Whereabouts are you at?
I'm in, like San Diego, California,
okay.
Like that area.
All right,
so
sweet. So it's coming into summer there.
Yeah, speaking of summer,
it's always summer.
It's like 100 degrees out here where I'm at. It's 100 degrees. I don't know what that is.
That's Fahrenheit, eh?
Yeah. I forget.
Celsius down here.
But
Celsius here.
Well, you guys are Celsius. I don't know, like 60. Would that be considered?
Nah, we're coming into winter, so I think
okay.
Fahrenheit. I think for you guys it's like about 30 or something.
It's
getting a bit cold.
That's really cold.
Yeah.
That's really.
That's
cold.
not too bad.
Definitely no, but you've accomplished a lot within your rugby career and after your playing years as well. But just please tell us about growing up in Auckland and how rugby was introduced to you.
So it's so I grew up in Central Auckland. So pretty much after World War II, when a lot of the Kiwi men went to war and didn't come back. The government here at the time needed to stimulate the economy, stimulate the labor force. So they pretty much opened up their doors to Tonga and Samoa in the 60s and 70s, 50s, 60s, 70s, right? So whole heap of sort of Tongans and Samoans come in and they all landed in Central Auckland, So it was close to work, walk into the wharves, walk into the factories, all that sort of stuff. And mum and dad come over at the same time, So I was born here and grew up in an environment like that. It was pretty much like a village back in the days, but just in another country. And I remember one time mum was upset at something. Probably wasn't my fault, but I thought, I'll just give her some room to chill, and took off out the back gate. And at the back of our property, it led onto a park. So thought I'll just go and chill at the park for a bit and let mum calm down. And I seen some mates down there and some of the cousins. So they were throwing the ball around. So, what are you guys up to? I was 7 years old. Said, we got training. We play in this league team, in this rugby team. Can I play? I said, yeah, sweet. No, okay, sweet. And that was my sort of first sort of introduction into the rugby environment. And then ever since then, I sort of just enjoyed it and thought, having fun down here. So I'll see how long I do it for and see how far it takes me. And it sort of took me on a pretty out of a journey.
Yeah, definitely. And how old were you at this time?
7.
So, okay. And
yes, I was 7.
When was it for you when you knew that, like, wow, I can make a career out of playing rugby?
It wasn't probably about 16, 17. I remember we had a game and one of the selectors, the rep selectors, I don't know if you call them selectors, they're recruiters or whatever.
Oh, recruiters. Okay, yeah.
They pick the teams, yeah. Mm-hmm. The guys that pick the teams. So they went up to our coach and said, where's this guy been? Is he new? Is he from the islands? And he goes, no, he's been here the whole time. But what happened is when they were recruiting guys back in those days, they just used to have the names. Mm-hmm. And my cousin had the same name in our team, like Joe, and we had the same last name. So they just used to put last name down. So every time they saw it at the club, the trials, they just thought that they just doubled up and made a mistake again, and they put down Vagana twice, when in actual fact there was two of us. So I sort of, so they went, okay, listen, we got to get this guy in the system, So again, from then I started making rep teams. I was 18 or 19, and I was playing seniors by then, which is like open grade. I don't know, and I was the youngest in the team. I remember. So in Central Auckland back in those days, it wasn't sort of. There was a lot of islanders around, a lot of sort of issues and challenges that come with it, in a foreign land. Mm-hmm. I remember after a game one time, this guy came into our change room, or our coach came into our change room, at the time, and he said, "Hey, Nigel, there's this white guy outside who wants to talk to you." And back in those days, the only people that come down was a lawyer or a police officer, right?
Yeah.
So I said, listen, just go tell him he's got the wrong guy. It's not me. And so anyway, he went back out, came back in again, our coach, and he said, no. He said they're starting up a new team in the NRL in a few years' time, calling it the Warriors, and they want you to come in. He's one of the coaches from the team. Want you to come play. Mm-hmm. So I went outside, and it was one of the coaches from the Warriors, and he was setting up a sort of scholarship group of players to sort of prepare them for entry in 3 or 4 years. Mm-hmm. And they pretty much said, listen, we'll train, at this time and that time, Sunday morning, we'll do this and that, all this sort of stuff, right? Nutrition, gym, da-da-da. And I'd never done any of that stuff before. And he said, listen, have you got any questions? And I said, do I get a tracksuit?
Like the warm-up? Like the
like a
warm-up, yeah.
Yeah, like all tracksuit, And I said, do I get a tracksuit? Because all I'm thinking about is my dad. All the gears that come, goes to the uncles. We get gears that it happens on this side of the world as well. So I thought, do I get a tracksuit? And he said, yep, you'll get a tracksuit. And I went, okay, sweet, I'm in. Because all I thought was, just get some clothes for the family.
Yeah.
Then on the back of that, sort of I got into the team was the first professional team in New Zealand, the Warriors.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and then off the back of that, sort of just stayed in the environment for a bit and just progressed through.
Yeah, and so while playing with the Warriors, what were some challenges that you faced? Playing at that
level. We never knew what was expected, so we don't have the college system here. So if you guys go into the NBA, NFL, you go through a college environment. So you go high school. They prep you a bit at high school. If you're good enough, you get recruited at college. When you go to college, if you're good enough, they'll raise the bar. They'll teach you about nutrition. They'll teach you about training schedules. They'll teach you about traveling, home games, away games, the mental toughness, the mental preparation, all that sort of stuff, right? And then if you get past all that and you're still good enough, and then you go into the pros. But we didn't have any of that middle sort of college sort of education or learnings, teachings. Right? So we went straight. We skipped it. Went straight in there for a lot of us. And so we ended up going straight from school, and we were sort of like the first wave of kids that went straight from school, finished school, and then straight into the pros, and over there, if you're, I think Kobe did it, maybe Sean Kemp back in the days, but there wasn't too many that goes, and they've changed that system for various reasons.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
But for us, all the challenges that come with it, we don't know. My mum made me, before games growing up, my mum used to make me bacon and eggs for breakfast on game day, just because it's what everyone ate on Saturdays. I didn't know that, you probably shouldn't be eating that before a game when you get to the, you know what I mean? I've been doing it my whole life. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that sort of stuff. We don't know we needed certain hours of sleep. To get ready for training the next day. We don't even know our season starts here in March, right? And it goes from March till September. Mm-hmm. You have October off, or October, November-ish. Then you start training generally November 1. Or the first 2 weeks, you go all the way to Christmas, have a break over Christmas, New Year's, you train again January, February, and then you kick off in March again. So there's not much time, But I remember when we first did preseason and we were training in October, and we were like, "Why are we training October for? We don't play till next year."
Yeah.
But we had no idea about preseason. because I'd never done preseason before. You know, so there was a whole heap of stuff that was embedded into that environment that we had to learn pretty quickly. And a whole heap of guys ended up falling to the side and sort of couldn't get it. I remember one time we travelled for a trial game and we didn't. It was at the end of preseason. We were going for a trial game. Call it trial game or warm-up game, whatever you call it.
Oh, exhibition.
Exhibition game, yeah. We're going for one of those games against another team, and we're at the airport. And we get to the airport, we check in all our luggage, and all of the young guys, there's probably about 15 of us, you know, we all go to McDonald's. We start eating. But we don't know, like, we always go to McDonald's when we get to the airport, you know, because going to the airport, we only used to go just see our family off going back to Samoa. Yeah. You know, or going to Australia. But every time, you know, they congregate, you know, and, you know, in Pacific communities, we identify, we navigate through places, right? Like when you get to the airport, go up the escalators, McDonald's on the left, go past McDonald's, and I'll meet you at the back of the third table on the right next to the window. You know what I mean? Like we don't, you know. So, but you know, even if you're navigating the streets, right? You know how, you know, oh, where does Fina live? Oh, you know where the KFC is? You go past KFC and you go left. Then you got Walmart on the right, go past Walmart, another roundabout. You know, like we don't do streets. We do landmarks.
True. That is so true. Yeah.
We do landmarks. So for us, it was like, hey, when you get to the airport, go downstairs and check in, and then I'll meet you at McDonald's. Okay, sweet. So we all met there, right? So we all in there. There's probably 15 of us, and we got our food and joined the tables together, and we all eating away. And our manager walks in, and this is at the airport, right? A lot of other people around, and he blows everyone up. You know, what the hell are you guys doing, eating all this stuff? You shouldn't be in there. You just been training for 4 months. You know, running up hills, doing all this preseason, and now you're going to a game and you're eating all this junk food. But we didn't sort of think about it as junk food. It was just McDonald's.
Yeah, it was just,
you know,
yeah,
or whatever it was, you know. So we had to learn how to actually live as an athlete, which was the hardest thing. On the field, you know, you get the ball, okay, sweet, same rules. We do what we do. Yeah, I was off the field and you know, it's off the field that you actually define how far you get, how long your longevity in the environment. How you respect the environment and how the environment sort of comes back to you know, with opportunities for you, you know. So it's that was probably the biggest challenge for a lot of us.
Definitely. Wow. No, thank you for sharing that. And I mean, just are you able just to talk about your experience playing, just how it was for you, and you know, playing for awesome. You know, New Zealand and Samoa. Awesome. Just how was that? Yeah, it was awesome.
I mean, my first pro, I guess, in the pros, playing for New Zealand, the top team. I played a couple age group teams along the way, but it was just awesome to like, we're sort of, I guess it's probably like you guys playing for America, right? You know, you're born in America, but your roots aren't from America generally.
Yeah.
You know, and our roots are back in the Pacific, right? Pasifika. So when we play for New Zealand, it's almost like New Zealand finally, well, for me anyway, it felt like it finally accepted us on a different level, as opposed to labourers coming in to help stimulate the economy in the 70s, you know, and then the dorm raids, you know, in the 80s to try and get everyone back to the islands, and those sort of ripping everyone out of their houses. You know, it's like this t-shirt here, like Panthers on Polynesian Panthers, right? Which is when and that's like the Panthers that they set up, you know, the Black Panthers in the Bay Area. You know, to fight civil rights and all that. So we had a Polynesian Panthers down here. Not sure if you guys are aware of that.
Oh no, I didn't.
But the Polynesian Panthers was all around then, 70s, 80s, because of all the, I guess, the discrimination and everything that was going on to the Polynesian communities. But you know, so say for us as kids of that sort of kids of the migration, right? A whole heap of us were excelling in different areas. We had guys coming through the music industry. You know, guys coming through trying to get into acting and playwrights and all that sort of stuff. And in the sports field, we were sort of going through the roof. So to be able to sort of play at the highest level for New Zealand, it was like we felt accepted, you know, and part of the fabric of the country, and also an opportunity, because there was a few guys before us, and the generation before us that played for New Zealand. When a lot of that stuff was going on. So I think for our wave, which we were the next sort of wave coming through, it was like being accepted by the country, you know. And I guess, say if for you guys over there, if, you know, you end up playing basketball for USA, at the Olympics or something like that, right? everyone in the US, you'd think, would support you because you represent America abroad, right? So whenever we're talking, and in New Zealand, there's about 5 million people. It's only a small country.
Yeah.
But they would say, listen, when we're going out in the field, we're representing 5 million, and it's probably the only time that we got to that level. So that was pretty cool. Going in that. But then Samoa was a different beast.
Why is that? Why
Samoa? Well, it's home, and it's playing for Samoa connected us to our ancestors. Playing for New Zealand made us belong here. Or made me feel like I belonged in NZ. But playing for Samoa made me feel I belonged to my ancestors, back in the islands and our generations that come before us, So that was really sort of a different sort of acceptance. And a lot of the guys that we played with and still play now, they all, it's a different feeling, and it's a different sort of responsibility as well.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of the guys that get it, once they get there, then something inside them clicks and they go, okay, I got it now.
Yeah.
Shucks, I shouldn't have done that thing last year. I shouldn't have done that thing the year before, But it's sort of like it's an acknowledgement that we're actually connected to our ancestors.
Yeah.
So now we actually got to live in a way that makes them proud.
Yeah.
And that's going that way. So that was pretty cool too. Yeah. It was awesome.
And I feel that when you're playing, and like you have that feeling of like representing something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And just having like that sense of purpose, like, man, like I got to put on for, New Zealand or like Samoa. And it's just, I think that's just a great feeling. And
I think even now, like I'd go to the US, right? And people would identify with me more so over there because I play for Samoa than New Zealand, right? A lot of people don't even know New Zealand is in America.
Yeah.
Which is cool. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But when you play for Samoa, the Samoans in Vegas, the Samoans in Carson, the Samoans in the Bay Area, San Diego, like everywhere, in Utah, they all, all right, sweet, play for Samoa. He's one of us, so it's different connections. And as opposed to playing for New Zealand, which is just, which is similar, but it's just different connections, So to get the opportunity to do both was I think it's put me in a good light where I can sort of live in both worlds comfortably and be responsible for both.
Definitely. Is there a game or a moment that is that was memorable for you in your playing career? Top moment.
Top moment. I don't know if it's the top. I'll just say the first one that came.
Yeah, no, of course.
Right? So the first one that came to my head was when I captained Samoa for the first time, and it was at the World Cup. And our first game was against Tonga. And a lot of our guys from our team had left New Zealand because we thought, listen, New Zealand was in a good place at the time. They had a lot of good players coming through and all the rest of it. We'd done our dash. I'd been there sort of 10 or so years. It was time to sort of give back to Samoa and try and help develop Samoa before I retired, right? And there was a few other guys that were thinking the same thing. So we sort of said, all right, sweet, let's go. But what the Tongans did is we had boys that we were playing with in New Zealand, for New Zealand, they were a Tongan background as well. And they want to do the same thing. So Tonga ended up with probably the strongest team that had at the time ever. And same with us. So there was a lot of hype around it because for the first time, all the players in both teams were all professional athletes. So it's like a Tongan NFL team versus a Samoan NFL team.
Yeah.
And you're getting guys like Mauluma and Polamalu and these guys coming back for Samoa. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of hype around it. And so I was captain of that team, and I remember when I was walking out onto the field, the crowd was going crazy. And we did the anthems out there and the Sipa goal. The Tongans did the Sipa goal, and just that sort of all that emotion of that ancestral sort of energy, on the field at the same time. That was massive. That was pretty special moment. And we won.
Yeah, definitely.
So we got one over the Tongans that day. But I remember being in the press conference leading up to it, and one of the because a lot of people were worried about security, you know, because there'd been a lot of history of Tongan Samoans. Right?
Yeah.
And one of the journalists sort of said this. We played in Australia, so one of the journalists over there said, "What's the why is there so much history between Samoa and Tonga? Like, what's the rivalry? Where does it come from?" You know, and I said, listen, over there they've got this thing called State of Origin, right, which is New South Wales versus Queensland. Mm-hmm. It's been going for about 30, 40 years, and they sort of pump it up massive, right? It's like a state versus state type thing, maybe, California versus, I don't know, Texas or something like that, mm-hmm. you know, but, you know, a big rivalry, right? And I said, you guys, everything you do for State of Origin, you build up so much. I said, but that's been going for about 30 years, right? The history between Samoa and Tonga has been going for about 500 years, you know, at least, you know. And I said, Tonga used to rule Samoa back in the days, you know, and we had to fight to kick it up, you know. So I said, you guys have a big history of origin and you've been going 30 years. We've got, you know, 500 years, you know, at least, you know, that we're sort of still connected to.
Yeah.
And we're still bringing all that energy through, you know. So as a Samoan, when you grow up, you immediately know it's like a love-hate relationship, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe, you know, sisters or brothers or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
It's like when you grow up as a Samoan, all Samoans know their relationship with Tongans, and all Tongans know their relationship with Samoans. You know, and you know, on good days you got good days, on bad days you got bad days, you know. Yeah. But it's Samoan Tonga, and that's known around the world, everywhere around the world, you know. So for us, being able to sort of use that in a sporting environment to influence. After the game, actually, all the crowd ran on the field, like they swarmed the field.
Wow!
And guys were doing interviews, and they were getting knocked over.
Oh,
yeah. It'll be online somewhere. You'll see it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they were getting knocked over, and they said in the press conference afterwards, they said, "Weren't you scared for your safety?" Because that lady, I think, was it Monica Seles, the one that got stabbed, the tennis? The van. Oh no, they had like so they had, you know, there was a big thing around athlete safety. Mm-hmm. The whole crowd ran on. They said to me in the press conference afterwards, "When you worried about your safety?" And I said, "No." I said, because all the crowd there was Samoans and Tongans. And I said they just wanted to come on the field and just give their warriors, give their heroes a pat on the back and say thank you, and then go home. You know. Mm-hmm. So it was actually the excitement of jubilation that they were running on the field, as opposed to, you know, anger, you know, coming onto the field. You know, so it was different. And the security guards were all Islanders too.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
yeah, of course.
So they're like, yeah, where you go?
Go ahead.
You know. So, but it was the first time in Australian sport that they'd seen that sort of stuff. Yeah. And so to be a part of it was pretty special, because I think we ended up changing the landscape in our sport anyway. Rugby, for the way that Pacific athletes and communities were viewed in a professional environment.
Definitely. And you know, you mentioned being a captain, and are you able to talk about? Can you talk about the responsibility and that it takes to be a captain on a team, and you know, and can you just talk about that and like just the mindset that you had when you knew you had that title, you know, of being a captain on the team?
Well, there's different types of captains, you know. Basically your leaders of the team,
of course, yeah,
your influencers. When I sort of got it, or was captain with the Samoan team, it was I felt more a responsibility for us to uphold what Samoa stood for. You know, wherever we were, you know, training, you know, on the field, at the airport, traveling for games, you know, the bus, the helping to set the culture of the environment as well. You know, we had Gangas as our uniform, for example. You know, it was awesome. You know, we'd go to restaurants and we'd sing a local, we'd sing our grace for our meals at the restaurant.
Oh yeah,
the whole restaurant would just stop. You got 30 guys, all, you know, all units singing a Samoan song before they eat their food.
Wow.
You know, a lot of people haven't seen that before. So you know, I think when I was captain, I wanted to drive the influence that our group could have on the community, and not Pacific community, non-Pacific, non-Samoan community. Right? so people could see us in a light that maybe they hadn't seen before, and try and break some stereotypes along the way.
Yeah.
And that doesn't switch off. There's no off switch when you're captain.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
10 o'clock at night, 4 in the morning, whatever it is, there's no off switch.
Yeah.
But I think generally sort of you don't get thrown in. Well, you don't get thrown in at the deep end generally in that environment. You're actually been preparing for a while, I think, and people watch you and they nurture you as you coming through the grades, and they know, oh, this guy's not too bad in this role. This guy might be good in this one, or the skill.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's just a progression of the way you are as a person.
Definitely. No, thank you for touching on that. What do you love most about rugby?
I love meeting new people. Like I played in a few different teams, and I still spoke to a couple of teammates yesterday from 2 different teams. So I still keep in touch with them now, and I think for me it was just meeting new people and understanding about them, learning about them was probably one of my favorite things about being an athlete. But I think also helping, and I didn't realize this till I stopped playing, that every team I went to when I signed a new contract, and I chose to go to, needed help in a certain way, and I think I'd always been that sort of person who just wanted to help where I could, And if this team is struggling and they need a hand with some stuff, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll leave this team and I'll go and help that team now. I sort of ended up moving along that way throughout the journey, and I think that was sort of a great. I really enjoyed that, because I think people appreciate when, and it's like with any athlete, right? When people talk about their day ones, or people will talk about the ones that were there when the lights weren't on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The ones that sort of would open up the gym for them so they could train. Get those sorts of people.
Yeah, definitely.
When your back's against the wall, when you're on struggle street or whatever, you always remember the people that helped you up along the way, And I always wanted to sort of be that person where I could. And I think as I got through the system, I had more opportunities to do that with different groups and different people and different communities. The last team I was at, South Sydney, the massive Indigenous community in Australia, and Russell Crowe just bought the team. So you guys know Russell Crowe,
Russell Crowe,
the actor. So Russ just bought the team, and the man rings up, you keen to come over, and where they were, where South Sydney was, the Rabbitohs, they're in central Sydney. Basically, ghettos, like you guys call it, inner city, all the challenges that come with those communities. And when I went there, I thought of the community I grew up in central Auckland, which is quite similar. It's a lot different now. But I thought, going to South and helping them is just like coming back home and helping the guys here, in Central. So even being able to do that was awesome, and trying to help that community get on their feet again, and show them a bit of love.
Yeah, definitely. So before games, did you have a pregame ritual or routine that you did?
Not really. Not that I can. Not that I was, diligent enough to do every game, But I think, if we had night games, because we play, you either play in the afternoon or evening, in our world. So, in the evening, have a nap during the afternoon, but not really. I remember some guys would put their left sock on first, then their left boot, then their right sock and their right boot. Guys, guys would talk to their legs, in their changing rooms. You guys have different things all the time, but I think for me it was I didn't really have that sort of stuff. I was happy just to go with the flow.
Yeah, and I love asking this question, but we don't see what goes on in the locker room. But do you have like a funny story that you can share with us? That happened in the locker room, like a funny locker room story.
Oh man, a funny locker room story. I was just trying to think. It's been a while since I was
Yeah.
what kind of stories have you in the past?
So like, okay, so Jason Kapono, he played in the NBA. He talked about how Coach Pat Riley was really upset after one game and tried to kick a door. He tried to kick a door closed, but the hinge was down, and he ended up tearing his like LCL or something when they.
Shucks.
So like the players try to keep their cool and it couldn't so something like that, or with like different teammates, or Joe Salavea talked about after one of like they almost like they made a run to like the Super Bowl, and after like those memorable moments, but like either funny or memorable locker room stories.
Oh man, I'm just trying to think. I remember a coach back in the days of the Warriors at halftime, because we had a couple of guys in the team who like to look pretty, before the game, so they're doing their hair, one had a mohawk, the other had his braids done and all this sort of stuff.
Oh wait, sorry. By the way, I saw that you had like cornrows back in the day. You had some cornrows.
Oh yeah,
I watched some rugby highlights, and I was like, oh, okay, you had some cornrows. Okay.
Oh yeah. I remember, and one of the coaches, we come in at halftime, and the coach was we were losing. Coach was angry, and he's blowing everyone up. And you're not making your tackles, and you're not running there, and you're not doing this, and you're not doing this. And he looks over at these two guys, and he goes, "And you two were playing with your effing hair, all in the lead up to the game. And look at you guys now; you both look like idiots." These guys, all trying to do their hair before the game and stuff like that. But we had certain coaches. I don't know. I mean, it's sort of like been a while since I've been in the locker room, but
yeah, of course.
There are plenty of angry coaches in the locker room.
It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, you know what? It has been a while since you've been back. Since you've been in it, so it's okay. It's all good. But I'm just curious, with all your accolades as a player, how do you think you were able to sustain your success? And receive the awards you received. Personally, I believe it requires a certain mindset, determination, and a standard that you have for yourself. And so to accomplish all that you did, but can you just touch on that and what you think, what your thoughts are?
I think for me, the biggest thing that I sort of used throughout my career, I think looking back, was I kept a group of people around me that were outside of the environment, or your day ones, or whatever you want to call them, and they helped keep me grounded. And I think when you got people like that, looking back for me, it actually helped me when, on the good days, not to get too carried away, but also on the bad days, or more so on the bad days, that listen, you stuffed up, you missed a tackle or whatever it was, but you still got this, you still got that, you still got that. So they help put things in perspective. And I think when you've got that ability to go in between, people work on resilience now, after you're knocked down, right? Every time you get knocked down. But for a lot of the athletes, and I was saying this to someone the other day, I said, well, we have a bad day. Right, so you have a bad day, right? You're in an office, you've got a bad day. People in your office will know. You'll come home, your family will know. Maybe some of your mates might know. And that's about it, right? Mm-hmm. As an athlete, you have a bad day. Everyone on TV knows. Everyone in the newspaper knows. Everyone on social media knows. All your friends and family know. Mm-hmm. People that aren't your friends and family know. Yeah. But then that also stays around the next day, the next day, the next week, the next month, the next year. Years. So it's a lot harder to come back from that when you get hammered all the time online. There's that site that's up. I'm not sure if you're aware of it. Athletes Are Humans.
What?
And it's a page on the gram, and it's like or online social media, and it's pretty much just how. So say that the girl who pulled out the French Open, the tennis player, right? The American girl.
Oh yeah, Naomi Osaka.
So and all the criticism she got online.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But it's that sort of stuff where it's like, well, she's trying to do something that's going to be better for her mentally, for her own well-being, and gets hammered for it. So for me, when I had those people around me that that could keep me grounded. Whenever situations like that came up, they'd always put things into perspective and put it in balance, and then, the sun comes up tomorrow, man. The sun's still going to come up tomorrow, you know. So there's always a brighter day ahead, So for me, being able to sort of listen to who I needed to listen and block out everyone else, I thought helped me get through. It's easy when you're winning, and it's easy when you're getting awards and all that sort of stuff. But at the other end, it can be a struggle, and I think those are the people that sort of helped me, throughout my career, and probably helped me extend my career. There was plenty of times I wanted to walk away. I remember driving to training one time, and I was in the car, and I'm thinking, I had enough of this, man. And I was only been in it about 2 years. I was a young fella. I was at the Warriors, and it was like, and we had a new coach in place, and the team was getting hammered, and it was just a hard grind. What's the show called?
Inside the Grind. We got to.
Yeah. We were really inside it. We were in the cave in the grind. But it was like it was a hard slog, and just when you're not used to it or you're young, sometimes you don't see. The light at the end of the tunnel,
the bigger picture.
And it's you can only see it from within at the end of the day, right? So when I remember driving to training, and I thought, man, and I was like a zombie going to training, same way, same route, same road, left here, the landmarks, turn left at McDonald's, go right here. I was on autopilot, and I remember thinking, stuff this, man, I'm going to go and I'm going to do a U-turn, right? And then when I looked up, I was already at training, and I went, if I do a U-turn, they're going to see me through the window. I went, I've got to go in now. But I remember that clearly, because it's the only time in my career I felt like I had enough of this. I would go do something else. And I was probably only 20, 21.
Wow.
Okay.
And
then, stuck it out.
But during that time, what motivated you? What pushed you?
I can't remember. I'll be honest. I mean, I think because I was still living at home. So come home from training, and everyone's gone to sleep, but Mum's still trying to boom with a laser for you, for your dinner at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whatever it is. Everyone's gone to sleep, and you think about, how other people are trying to help you. It's not so much, be the best you can in that world, but it's more be the best you can in yourself.
Yeah.
As a person, right? Like all parents, they want you want your kids, or they want their kids to reach their potential, whatever it is, you're going to go down this media path or whatever it is, see how far you can get, and they'll support you on that journey, wherever the journey is, So I think from memory, for me, it was just thinking, there's all these other people that are invested in my journey as well.
Yeah.
And if I call it a day here, it affects those guys as well, And in some cases you need to cut them off, because there's a lot of coming through that are way too much, way too much, and especially 100%. as games are gone, I mean, you guys in the States would see it probably a lot more than we do down here, with the influence of the sponsorship dollars, the schools, the recruiting, and all the extras that come with being an athlete. It's quite a lucrative environment now, $1 billion industry, billions and billions, and for our people that come over from Pacific, or generally when you go from a smaller environment to a bigger environment, you have this mentality that, the land of milk and honey, man, let's go and make our lives a bit better, and if you're in an economy, like you guys, and you think, shucks, we need money to make our lives better. Oh, well, we actually got one of our kids here who actually runs really fast, so he can catch a ball. Hey, that could be our ticket. So let's support him and let's invest everything in him, because that's the one who's going to take our family this way. Oh, but he's only 7 years old. That's all right. He'll grow up. And they nurture him through that. And a lot of communities are finding that. A lot of athletes are finding that from some of the work I've done post football. But yeah, I think for me it wasn't too bad. But it can get quite. I know guys who walked away and didn't come back.
Wow.
And they and heaps of. I remember, you know, a guy named Navy Tuisoko. You know a guy named Navy? Oh, He played NFL a few years ago. He's part of
Oh,
that big family.
I mean, I know the last name, Sopo. I know the last name.
They're quite a renowned sort of family in that sort of football space, American football.
Mm-hmm.
So I was with Navy a few years ago before he passed, and
Wow.
we were talking away, and he sort of said, we're talking about the draft, and he said, in LA, he said, looking around here, in LA, there's more first-round draft picks walking the streets of LA than there are in the system.
Mm.
But it's because they couldn't get through college. You know, they didn't get the support or the opportunities to help nurture them through. So there's actually a lot more talent that isn't in the system.
Yeah.
But, you know, when you get through the system, you understand that, you know, that it's not just talent that gets you through.
Mm-mm.
It's actually the infrastructure around you, and the mindset that you sort of have. There's a whole heap of other stuff, you know, your support network, and, you know, your dedication, your commitment, all that sort of stuff, you know. Your sleep patterns, you know.
Oh my!
I don't know anything about sleep patterns.
Oh yeah.
But you know, if you don't do proper sleep patterns, you're not going to last long in the system.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if your nutrition isn't right, you're not going to last long in the system.
Yeah.
You know, so a lot of that sort of stuff is away from the training. You know.
Yeah.
So it's just understanding that it's actually a massive picture behind the scenes, like an iceberg. I guess people only see the tip of the iceberg, but 90% is all underwater.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the athlete. No, 90%.
No, sorry. Yeah, 90%. Yeah, I know. Jeez Louise with your crooked finger. Yeah, with your crooked finger. Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, no. Like,
yeah, see.
It's
supposed to be like that.
Yeah, I know, but
it's like that.
Crooked pinky game.
Oh, see, yours. See. Is that your right?
That's my right, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Same.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the athlete's finger, right?
Yeah, exactly. It is. It is. Yeah, I read
all athletes know, you know.
Yeah.
That's the grind right there.
Exactly. Sorry, what were you saying? You were talking about
I'm just rapping. I'm just wherever. Just the pressures, you know. That's the whole mindset that you need to actually become an athlete.
Yeah.
You know, and you know what? Everybody has situations, right? Which is cool. That's life. You can either use those situations to drive you, or you can blame those situations for, you know, your lack of success.
Victim. You can play the victim. You know, or you can totally overcome it. No, 100%. Well, I would love for you to touch on not, you know, being a rugby league player and not wearing, just rugby overall, not wearing any pads or a helmet. Because you know, over here in the US, you know, we got pads, we got a helmet, we got everything to protect us. You know, how is it? You know, was there like a little, I don't know, fear, but like, I don't know, just your thoughts on this.
Have you ever been whacked? I mean, like, you know, like collisions and stuff like that. I know you play basketball. Did you do anything else?
Oh yeah, no, yeah. I mean, in basketball, yeah, there's a little bit of collision. I mean, not really. Yeah, no.
I don't think. I mean, like, I remember when we'd come over to the States and talk to people, and they were actually quite. They couldn't understand why we didn't have helmets and stuff like that. You know, but down here, it's like it's just normal. You know, we sort of, you know, and you get used to it, you know. And like, I'm helping out with the kids team now at the moment, and there's some, like, they're only under 12 years old and 13, you know, and they don't have pads, no nothing.
Yeah.
And we've got some guys who, you know, turn into man-child. You know what a man-child is?
Like a big old child that looks like a man.
Yeah. The testosterone's kicked in, so, you know, these guys are like this, and the others are still haven't kicked in yet, you know. So you've got the big sort of discrepancies in sizes, but they still have to tackle each other. You know, but I think you know, for us, it's actually a good mental challenge, I think, for us as well. You know, when we've been doing that growing up as kids, because you sort of, it's not about challenging yourself, like, you know, man up, you know, let's be tough and that sort of stuff. But it's more like overcoming obstacles, right? You're a little fella and you go, like, I was one of the little guys when I was playing, you know, it was heaps bigger dudes, you know, and like, people, I remember when I come over to the US and people used to go, "Are you Samoan?" And I'm going, yeah, I'm Samoan. No, you're not. And I went, "Oh, what am I?"
How do you know?
"No, you're not Samoan, you know." And I'm going, "Why?" They went, "You're too small to be Samoan."
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Oh, because I know the size over in the US are massive. But I said, "No, I'm one of the little ones." They go, "Oh, okay, that makes sense, you know." But they couldn't. But, you know, I guess you overcoming obstacles within yourself to be able to take on challenges, right?
Yeah.
So you've got a big guy running at you. What are you going to do? You got two choices.
Yeah.
So I think off the back of that, it taught us a lot of what we had inside of us,
Yeah.
and but also how to navigate challenges in life, right? So if you're a little guy and you got to tackle a big guy, well, I can't really tackle him up the top because he's too strong. His arms the same size as my head.
Yeah.
But if I go low and take his ankles, I'm all good. You know what I mean? So you actually learn strategies to look after yourself.
Yeah.
But I know in the US, a lot of people are sort of saying, "Man, you guys are crazy. Why are you wearing helmets and this and that?"
Was there like a really bad injury? Like, what was the worst injury that you had while playing?
Oh, I don't know if it's the worst. I got injured a few times. I actually counted. Was I talking to you the other day or someone else? I counted because I've got about 230 stitches in my head. I was counting the other day.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but just I'm not sure if you can see that. Oh, I got a cut there.
Yeah.
I've got a few cuts there. Got some under here, and I got like a slice of my head there. I got 22 in there in one game. So there's a few there. But I broke my collarbone. I got a little here, but I actually didn't know I broke it until about 2 years later.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. So it's because I went to a new club and I did a medical. And they went, okay, tell us about your injuries. And they went, what about your collarbone? And I went, nothing wrong with it. And they went, yeah, your collarbone, your left one. And I went, no, there's nothing wrong with it. And they went, you see that bump there? And I went, yeah. And they said, how long has that been there? I went, oh, it's been there for a little while. And he goes, well, that's because it was broken and it's calcified over. And I went, oh, is that what it was? So I don't know. Yeah, so I don't know. I've done something.
Did you feel it at all? Like, did it
No, I don't remember.
Oh, wow.
Well, I broke my ankle. I got a plate in my ankle still, in my leg. I think I got 6 screws in there still. Yeah, it wasn't too bad.
It wasn't too bad. Okay, well, interesting. Well, no, thank you for sharing. But Nigel, like what my show is about is, what it's called Inside the Grind and what it takes to get to where you are and like to where you were at. And are you able to share the grind and the process that it took for you to get to where you're at and like just the mindset, mentality and things that you were touching on before, but just what was your process, and the grind that it took you to get to where you're at?
I think, there's a few things along the way. I think belief is a big one. You actually got to believe in yourself. And you'll hear a lot of, I guess, athletes who've actually made it, or every one of them. There'll always be some that say, for every athlete that's made it, there will always be people in their lives that have told them that they weren't going to make it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everywhere. Every athlete, everyone. So I think you've got to believe that, if you think you can get there, you can get there. And then it's about committing to it. It's like you're setting a goal and you commit to it. People sort of say, listen, some people, when you write down your goals, tell other people, because then other people can keep you accountable.
Yeah.
If you can't yourself.
Yeah.
But when you commit to it, it's like, okay, listen. I was with a guy yesterday who used to be, we played league together, professionally. And he goes, I'm still trying to lose weight. And I said, well, you coming over with fish and chips and those sausages aren't going to help. So he wants to lose weight, but he's not committed to it.
Yeah.
I'm going to show him. Mate, think about it. But it's that stuff, because if you actually commit to it, you've actually got to, if you believe it, then commit to it. And if you commit to it, then you'll actually start putting things in place.
Yeah.
Right? The process, right? Okay, you know what? I'm going to go to sleep early. Why? Because I read somewhere that, you need, 8 hours sleep, 10 hours sleep, whatever it is. You need to get your sleep before a game. You need to eat certain foods. You need to do this, and what you'll find is you actually, when you commit to the process or you commit to that lifestyle, the journey becomes a lot easier. Because a whole heap of others don't. They'll go, you know what? I know we've got a game tomorrow. They might be in college, right? Or in high school. I know we've got a game tomorrow, but there's a cool party on down the road.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'll just go for a little while. You know what I mean? Like
100%. Yeah.
It's just your choices, right?
Yeah.
So if you're committed to it, and that's what you want, and you believe that you're going to get there, then I think that's the biggest sort of challenge for any athlete. Because if you start sort of, we used to say to some of the young fellas that we used to work with, right, or that I used to help out, I said, if you look at the people around you, right, they're either going to help you get there or they're going to hinder you. So you look at the 5 people that you spend the most time with right, in your life. 5 people that you spend the most time with in your life, right? Which one are they? Because if they're not helping you get there, then they're stopping you. They're hindering you. Right? And it doesn't matter if you've known them your whole life. Doesn't matter if they were, you grew up together. Might be your brother or your sister. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you've got to spend time with people that are going to help you get to where you've got to get to, and I think that's that commitment. It's about sort of, cutting cords with the people that are stopping you from getting where you want to get to. Yeah. At the end of the day, if you committed to it and you have a crack and you go as far as you can, well, those people will still be there.
Yeah.
And more than likely still doing the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, definitely.
And then they'll go, man, I told you could do it. I knew you could do it. But I think the process for an athlete is big on you've actually got to convince yourself first.
That's true.
And once you got it, and once you believe it, and then the whole world will open up.
Definitely. And and can you touch on you retiring? You making that decision, and how was that? How was that?
So I had I signed. So, and I think with most people, with most athletes, when you get into the pros, it's a business, right? It becomes a business, right?
Yeah.
So in my last contract, in my last year, I signed for 3 years. But they weren't too sure if I was going to last, They were like, we want to give them 2 years. And I'm like, well, I'm not coming unless you give me 3. We have my agent and all that sort of stuff, right? We're talking about. They said, all right, how about we do this, right? We'll give you 2 + 1. Right? So sign 2 years and we'll give you 1. But if you play X amount of games, if you play like 60% of the games in the 2 years, then it'll activate the 3rd year. So if you back yourself and you think you're all good, sweet, we'll have no dramas. And it worked out to be, and I went, okay, sweet. So we signed it, right? So it worked out to be about 20, must have been about 30 games in 2 years. But we normally, our seasons are like 24, 24 games a year, right?
Yeah.
So it worked out to be about 30, something like that. Anyway, the first year I played all 24. Right? So I'm like, oh, well, sweet. Just got to play 6 games. I'm easy. Right? No dramas. And I wasn't really thinking about doing that. It was more just, man, play each week, week by week, right? All right, got through the year. Oh, sweet, ended up playing all. Pre-season, next pre-season, ready to go again. Right? After about round 3 or 4, the team was sort of struggling a bit. The coach pulls me in and he says, listen, I think you're doing this and doing that. We're not going to pick you this week, And I said, what was I doing, And he was going, I've got to do this and got to do that. And I'm not thinking you're doing this and doing that. And I was like, what? But I am doing it, It's got the numbers there on the stats, And I couldn't work it out. And then he said, well, listen, I'm not going to play you this week. And I went, oh, sweet. So anyway, I'm going home that day, and I just couldn't work it out. And then I remembered the clause, and I don't know if he got a call from above or he was doing it, but I was on about 28 games then, and I only needed 2, and we still had about another 20 games to go. So I think from a club perspective, they were just trying to, from a business, not activate the 3rd year.
Yeah.
But for me, like we've got bills to pay, we've got a family to feed, all that sort of stuff. Right? So I said, listen, I'm going to take some time off. Once I found out, I said, listen, I'm not coming to training. I'm going to take some time off for about a month. And they went, sweet, have as much as you want, because they don't want me to play anyway. So I did my own training for about a month or 2. And I still kept in touch here and there with the trainers, and I was still in shape. But I was actually working out whether I was going to retire or not then, And I was just deciding, listen, what's the next steps? I studied, like I said, before we didn't have the college system. So a lot of our guys went from high school into the thing. So, but whilst I was playing, I studied. I studied architecture.
Oh wow, okay.
I was gonna go into that field when I finished playing, you know? And I thought, okay, so I'm thinking, okay, well, how do I transition now? If I retire, what are we going to do? How are we going to pay our bills? So all that stuff goes through your mind, right? It's a different lifestyle. And think about retiring as well. It's just cut off overnight. It's an overnight thing. There isn't a gradual process of retirement. It cuts off overnight, and then it's a gradual process of understanding and then being comfortable with it. And then some people get comfortable with it in maybe 1 year, others maybe 10 years, some others never get comfortable with it. You know, but that's an individual thing, and you know, based on, I guess, yourself and you know, your situation. But for me, I was like, oh man, what am I going to do? You know, how am I going to work through this?
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know what, stuff these guys. So I went, let's go negotiate again. And I'm talking to my agent. I'm going, you know what, let's flip the script. You know, because it's always about the business, and people always talk about loyalties to teams, right?
Yeah.
Were you at San Diego? Junior Seau.
Yeah.
Played his whole career at San Diego, right? Played his last year at the Patriots.
Yeah.
You know, so there would have been a lot of talk about, he's not staying loyal to San Diego and da-da-da, right? And it happens all the time, you know, LeBron and the Cavs.
Yeah.
You know? Or when he went to Miami and then he went back.
Yeah.
You know? And it's like, so, you know, every time a player leaves these days, they're burning their jerseys.
Oh, yeah.
The Celtics. Boston bless them. But it's like, but so everyone talks about loyalty, about athletes' loyalties to organizations and clubs, but very little the other way. Right. Very little the other way about, that's, you know, true. Well, what about the organizations and their loyalty towards the athlete that's dedicated 9 years, 10 years, 12 years, 15 years of their career to you guys? You know, where's your loyalty that way? You know, oh, no, it's a business. It's a business. Well, you know what, let's go business the other way. You know, so I spoke with my agent and I said, you know what? I said, I'm happy to retire. I said, but if they give me this is because I went and saw my accountant. I went, well, what do I need to pay the bills? How much do I need? He goes, you need this amount. And I went, okay, sweet. Well, let's double it and see what we get. You know? Yeah. So anyway, we went and did the deal and said, listen, I'll walk away. But, you know, if you give me this, I can pay the bills. I can look after the family. It looks after me for another, I think it was about a year. And then I did a deal where I got a part-time job with the club and a part-time job with the head office to help with that transition, right? So I did a deal. So I got some copies, got that there. And then when they were like, okay, sweet, then I was like, okay, all good, you know. But I had to flip the script on retirement and go, well, listen, as a business, you know, I get where you're coming from. I understand that. Yeah, but I'm not just gonna, you know, lie down and take it.
Of course, yeah.
So and it worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did the deal, and I think that sort of couple months of just thinking about it and going through the emotions.
Oh yeah.
But it also, I was also probably ready to retire at the end of the next year anyway. You know. Like I played 13 years, 14 years, whatever it was. And I remember playing with some guys, and one of my mates, about 2 years earlier, he said, listen, I'm just going to let you know, man, I'm retiring. We're going, oh, okay. I said, when? He goes, today. I'm going, oh, what happened? And he goes, oh, I was playing soccer in the backyard. He was running around the backyard with his daughter. I think his daughter was 5 at the time. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I couldn't even keep up with her because my knees, you know, he had bone on his knees. Yeah. He goes, his knees are shot. And he goes, man, I don't want to be, like, my girl's only 5. She's grown up. I can't even keep up with her now at 5. What am I going to do? Just sit on the chair while she's out running around? I don't want to keep playing till I'm in a wheelchair. You know, I've got to think about the next 30, 40, 50 years of life and the quality of life, you know. Wow. And I knew, and, you know, I know, they said we didn't have like helmets and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So our bodies get banged up a bit. Yeah. You know, but I think most athletes do anyway, you know. But it's also, I also had to think about the quality of life and the way I wanted to live afterwards and whether a year or two was worth it. You know, and some people, you know, Dwight Howard want to win a championship, you know. Yeah. You know, he'll stay in there. Man, I'm going. I just want to win it. I just want to win a ship, you know. And now he's got it, right? But it's like some people are just, you know, driven that way. Mm-hmm. You know, and you know, I'm just guessing, if Dwight Howard was in a wheelchair for the next 40 years, he'd be happy because he got his championship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas, I'd probably go the other way, and I'm going, well, man, I still actually want to live a quality of life. Because when you're an athlete, you lose your life to the system.
Yeah.
They tell you what to wear. They tell you what time to wake up. They tell you what time to go to sleep. They tell you what to eat, and if you don't listen, they cut you, So you actually, like, we got public holidays. This weekend here in New Zealand is a public holiday. As an athlete, you don't get public holidays. You don't get public holidays. We tell you when you can rest. We tell you when you got pre-season starting. We tell you when you got camps. When you got, your exhibition games. We run your schedule. You belong to us.
Yeah.
And that's it. That's the life of an athlete. You belong to that system. So you've got to make sure that when you're in that system, you do whatever you can to get the most out of the system, to help, and use the system to help you for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And not just you, your family and your people around you. And if you're from Pasifika, like us, you got an opportunity to help our communities and influence them in a certain way and help them out. Then if you're not doing it, you're failing your responsibility to our people.
Yeah. No.
But there's a lot of stuff that comes with it, But I was happy to retire. I was ready for it, and so I did the deal, and it was all good. It was all good.
Yeah.
Went on to the next phase.
Definitely. No. Thank you for sharing. And now transitioning into the next, life after rugby. Are you able to talk about what you like? Getting into being employed as an NRL education and wellbeing programs manager, and focusing on the Pasifika players. Can you touch on that for us? And what made you choose that?
Well, I think, I didn't choose it. It chose me.
You. Sorry, yeah, it chose you.
I didn't study for that. Well, I mean, when I was finishing, they were doing that deal, right? They said, we've got this job for you at the NRL, which is head office, right? And I said, okay, what's that? And they said, want you to be a wellbeing officer, right? A player's wellbeing officer. In America, they call it player development.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Working at like a PD, right? So working in player development. And I said, okay. What's that? And they said, it's pretty much just helping athletes with their life away from football or away from the field or the court, and their families and around it, and just helping them make the most of the opportunity in the environment and preparing them for life after football, or the transition out. And I said, I didn't study any of that stuff. I said, why me? And they went, well, you reached the highest level as an athlete. Right, so you've got the credibility amongst the group, so they'll listen to you. You studied as an athlete, so you understand the balance, because they wanted to get more guys studying. So you understand the balance, the life balance between studying and playing, and still being able to reach, your goals. And also you didn't give us any headaches on the back page of the paper. So I didn't sort of get into trouble with anything like that, And I went, okay. And they said, and I still had a lot of friends that were involved in the game, playing and stuff. So I said, okay, I'll give it a shot and see how I go. And ended up doing it for 10 years. So I stayed into it. But the more I was into it, the more I sort of started to appreciate and understand, because I wanted to understand the business of sport.
Yeah.
And then how we could use the business to actually help our athletes more, and then also help our Pasifika communities more, and minority groups and all that sort of stuff, So it actually just, every time I open it's like a can of worms, and you sort of, one door and it's leading to another. You just go down the rabbit hole way, and I just kept opening up stuff and setting up stuff, and ended up sort of going deeper and deeper and doing different stuff, because I was when I walked in the office, I was the only brown person there.
Yeah. In
the office, there was like this head office, there's probably about 80 people there, and I remember going, looking around, going, "Hey, is this the right place?" I still have my long hair,
Yeah.
and hair down to here, but it's sort of like like we spoke about before. If we've got an opportunity to step into an environment or open a door for that some of our other people don't have, or other communities or other Pasifika people don't have, we've got an opportunity to open a door, and we don't open it, then all of them are locked out too. It only takes one to open a door and everyone can come in.
Yeah.
Just got to stick the jandal down the bottom,
Yeah, no.
Is it the jandal?
Yeah.
Get that in there. It's like
What do you call it? You call it a jandal? Okay.
Yeah, what do you call it? Oh, I used to call it flip flops or something, is it? Or
Yeah, sandals.
what do you call it?
Flip flop, sandals, flip flop.
What's this?
A sandal.
Sandal.
Yeah.
Okay. You know what a boomerang is?
A boomerang.
Oh
yeah, I've got that. I've got that before. I've got boomerangs at me before.
It's got a tracking device on it. But so it was great to be able to sort of go into that environment, understand it, and then be able to set up programs that helped our athletes and our players and their families too. So it was awesome. So I set up programs across the environment. We did language classes.
Wow.
Samoan, Tongan, Māori. I think we started with those 3 languages. We set up cultural leadership camps to try and develop our leaders a lot more.
Wow.
But we left. But they left all their boots and all their gear at home. And for the weekend, and I brought in some academics. This is how I got into working with UCLA, because I brought in some academics from around Australia, and we sort of taught the guys, like it was a cultural leadership camp, 3 days, but we taught the guys about Pacific migration, around nutrition, around colonization, religion, spirituality, all stuff, song, dance, all of it, Melanesia, Micronesia, the whole work, where those names come from, who gave us those names. It was almost like history class for our guys, because if our guys were going to come through our system and be voices for our people, we actually need to educate them on what's happened in the Pacific. But when you come from high school, when you go straight into the pros, man, you're just in the athlete system, You're just learning about how to train properly, how to do proper power cleans in the gym. How to your running technique and how to get your knees up, and when you're sort of turning and doing your drills and your sprints and stuff, So all that stuff you're learning about, nutrition and food and hydration. They're not teaching you about when the colonizers came. They're not teaching you about the fishing industries and how tuna is getting smashed all over the Pacific. So when we were doing that, we actually gave the boys a lot more understanding of some of the challenges in the Pacific. So when they're talking online, or they're influencing, or they're at a panel somewhere, or they're just talking with their friends, they're going, hey, be supple, be supple, be supple.
Yes. I'm Samoan. Yes.
I know. Well, be supple. But be supple is, corned beef, right? But, you know where that name comes from? Pea soup. It actually means pea soup, right?
Oh, like legit pea soup. Oh, okay.
Because when a lot of the military were coming through in the early 1900s, and a lot of the sailors, all the food they had was in cans.
Oh,
because it lasts longer on the boats.
Yeah, of course.
So when they go there, right, the islanders never seen it before. What's that? And it was actually pea soup. Oh, that's not too bad. So everything in a can they called pea soup. Everything that came in a can they called pea soup, because it was the first one they saw was pea soup. It was in a can because all the sailors and all the used to come down back in the days. So then they just kept on the name. So now we call it pea soup.
Oh wow! Fun fact.
That's kind of like the stuff that we were teaching the guys. Through our cultural leadership camps, so that they could actually start questioning, not the way that they were living, but more so, shucks, what else is happening in our community? How can I help? Because, on the gram, I've got 100,000 followers. I've got 200,000 followers on this and da-da-da, So how can I help influence, So off the back of that, momentum just grew and grew. And then, eventually a lot of the guys went, well, you know what? I don't want to play for Australia anymore. I don't want to play for New Zealand. I want to play for Samoa. I want to play for Tonga. MMT come through a few years ago and just cleaned up the whole world. You know what I mean? But it's like in that wave, that Pacific wave of empowerment, it's still going on, So a lot of the stuff we did at UCLA was with the Pacific Studies program up there.
Yeah.
And Keith, Dr. Keith Camacho, he's a cool guy. But he's one of our boys. So we did a lot of programs over there, and then I was doing some stuff with some of the organizations in the US as well. Sharing some of the cultural programs that we've done with our guys to empower them to help their communities. When Carmelo's part Puerto Rico, right?
I'm sorry?
Carmelo Anthony.
Puerto Rican, yeah. I want to say, yeah.
So when they had that thing, right? So when they had the natural disaster over there, like he was at the forefront as one of the voices, or one of the strongest voices of helping the communities in Puerto Rico, right? But that's all that there's because there's a lot of that sports activism coming into play now. And people call it, but in the day, it's human rights. They're just using sports as a vehicle, right? Colin Kaepernick, like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? And Kaepernick was doing this 5-6 years ago.
Yeah,
but the man's still not playing because he went against the business. Because he went against the business, right? And that's the business of sport.
Yeah.
Right? But all that sort of stuff is where we were doing a lot of that sort of stuff down under as well, where it's like, listen, you're coming in, how can you help your people? And a lot of the guys were helping their people anyway. They just weren't thinking big, like global.
Yeah.
They were thinking, a lot of the guys, like one of my good mates, he was paying for his little brother and sister school fees every year. Through his stuff, they were back in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So we've got athletes that are doing that all the time for their families, right? But it's I wanted to get them to think wider than their families.
Yeah.
And bigger.
Yeah.
We can take on the world, man.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. So it's great to be able to be in a position to be able to sort of set up some systems and plant some seeds. Then water them over the years,
Yeah.
it's been awesome. And, it led me over to the US a few times and doing some stuff over there as well. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, overall, I want to acknowledge like the program, and what you've created and just say thank you. Just, being an athlete as well, it's just like, thank you for the work that you put in and, into these programs and, really educate our people, to help them become successful in their life, and I want to just say thank you for that.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. I mean, I remember my first time at UCLA and we were doing a bit of a tour of the facilities with PISA, which is the Pacific Island Student Association. And we're doing with them. And I think the crew from USC were down as well. And, we're wandering through and there was these two guys walking up and I said, hey, these guys look like island guys, big boys. And they were in the football team. Oh, okay. And they're walking towards us. And I went, oh, okay, sweet. So we're walking down. I end up walking straight past each other. And I'm going, are those guys island boys? And they went, yeah. And I went, why don't you talk to them?
Yeah.
There's like 30,000 people at this university and you just had two islanders walk past.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, no, we don't mix with them. I went, well, who? And they went, the athletes. I went, oh, why not? They said, because the academic world and athlete worlds are so separated at colleges. I never knew. And I'm like, oh, shucks. I said, well, we got to fix that.
And it's kind of messed up. Yeah, it's kind of messed up.
But I can understand how it works because they're basically prepping you for, this big industry, which is, NCAA, sports and whatever, right? But at the same time, the benefits to school and the funding that comes in from the schools, Navy, my mate Navy, right? So we're at USC and I said to him, oh, do the students ever, or the athletes ever get animosity from the other students at the school? Just because they get everything. They get the catering, they get the accommodation, they're traveling all over the place,
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, sometimes. And he goes, but even the teachers, sometimes the teachers, we get that. And even when he was at school, I think he went to San Diego State.
Okay.
And he goes, but you know what we tell them, what the school says to them? When was the last time 100,000 people showed up for an English exam? You know what I mean? We said that's the revenue, because that revenue brings in too much for the school, so they have to do it. So I kind of get the business of it. Doesn't mean doesn't mean it's right. I get it. Right? But for them, I'm like, man, okay, well, let's try and work out ways that you can connect with the Pacific athletes from all around the school.
Yeah.
And Lanier, Tusupu, she was at UCLA at the time, and she came in. She's like a Rowan.
Oh, okay. I just know the last name. I know the last name. So yeah.
No, because she was in this group with us at PISA.
Oh, nice.
And we're like, okay, well, sweet. Well, this is your this is going to be your adapter, so you can start connecting with all the other stuff. And she was really good. She was really cool, and she did a lot of work with us in the programs over there too.
Awesome.
But yeah, it's I get I get the challenges, but it's, it doesn't mean we can't overcome them. We've overcome them in the past,
Oh yeah, definitely 100%. But gosh, Nigel, you've just accomplished so much, and what would your advice, what would your piece of advice be to someone who wants to become successful in their life, or who wants to become the next Nigel Vagana? What would your advice be to someone? What would your advice be?
Maybe not me, but to be successful. Well, I think everybody has, everyone has different callings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some people are extremely happy just being on a farm.
Yeah.
Looking after rescue animals.
Yeah.
And that's it. And if you're really happy doing that, then that's awesome. If you're really happy, managing a warehouse, that's awesome. So I think the big thing about success is that you determine it. Other people don't determine your success, and you determine it by being really happy, like as internally, like deep down happy at what you're doing. You know what I mean? At what you're doing. And I like helping people. And I think over the years and growing up, if I look back, I've always been that person who likes helping people. And if I've got an opportunity, I'm always thinking, man, how can I use this to help some other people? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think to be successful, I think you've actually got to look inside yourself as to what really drives you, as to what really makes you happy, and then live that life.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't really matter what you're doing on the outside, really.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't like traveling, hate traveling.
I
love traveling.
I know,
because I'm meeting new people. So because I'm helping people, I'm traveling to different places.
Yeah.
And it's like, when we went to Chile a couple of years ago with the program, right? They want to do it in Chile and in South America. And we spoke to this group there, this indigenous community, and these three old ladies at the back started crying. And I said to my mate who was translating, and I said, hey, what are you saying, man? Those ladies at the back are crying. Are you saying the right thing? And he goes, no. He goes, yeah, I am. But because they've been looking for it for so long, for that sort of the next step. Well, it's kind of like those old ladies in the villages, or they know when this happened, and then we're shifting gear, and we're getting closer to where we've got to be. Right? And it's like, when we got there and we were doing our presentation and talking about some of the stuff we were doing back home, and how we can help them get it going there.
Mm-hmm.
For them, it's like, sweet, now we can change gear and go again, and we're getting closer to our happiness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, sweet, okay. But I think for people, it's just about doing what you got to do, what makes you happy. If you're happy every day in your life, you're successful.
Oh yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're successful. There's a lot of people that are what other people deem really successful. They might be, I don't know, in the big corporate world, got a lot of money, whatever.
Yeah.
Unhappy. You see it all the time. But you got dudes, all over the world with nothing and laughing every day.
Yeah.
So I think if you can get to a point where you're smiling and you're laughing every day, you're successful. And don't sort of base your success on someone else's success.
Yeah. Well, that was beautifully said. That was beautifully said. Because it's so true, and I feel that everyone has their own definition of success, but I believe like that it truly is deep within, and but no, thank you so much for saying that, and that was beautiful. Yeah.
And it doesn't sound hard. I mean, it's like, how people say, like, the simplest things to do are the hardest, generally. But that's, I think if people can overcome that, you're going to have an awesome life.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Awesome life,
Yeah.
You're not here for long.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, like that, what is that? YOLO, you only live once, so it's just like.
Yeah. Or actually, it should be Yoda. You only die once.
You only die.
But you live
Yoda,
every day.
Yeah, that's true.
But for a lot of people, they're not living every day,
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm saving up this, so when I'm 60, I'm going to go on a cruise and, go to Jamaica. But if you got a bad hip when you're 60, you can't even walk up the ramp. So why don't you just go now?
Yeah, no.
What are you waiting for?
What do you...
Let's live now.
No, that's so true. That's so true.
Listen, man, do what makes you happy.
Yeah, because we're not promised tomorrow,
No way.
Live every day as if it's your last.
Yeah, everybody was crying, when Kobe passed last year.
Oh,
like he was going to live forever.
Oh my God.
I know Kobe's your
guy. Oh my God. I love Kobe. Yeah. Yeah. Oh
yeah, But I know it was devastating for a lot of people. But because people assumed that he was going to live to, Kobe will be here till at least 80, 90 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, but you got to live every day.
Definitely. Alrighty, Nigel, we are in the home stretch of our chat, interview, and I'd love to do some rapid fire questions. So,
okay.
The first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready? Are you ready?
First thing that comes to mind.
The first thing that comes to mind. It can be either like a one word, one sentence, anything. Anything.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, sweet.
All right. Okay. The first one, a habit you wish you started earlier.
Sleeping.
Oh, it's like sleeping pattern.
Yeah, sleeping. I don't know. Hey, this is the first thing that came to my mind.
Yeah, no, okay, no, that was great. Thank you. That was a great answer.
Was that what I'm doing? Am I just doing the first thing? Or
yeah, no, that's no. Yeah, that was perfect. That was perfect. Second, if you could have dinner with 4 other people, dead or alive, who would those 4 people be?
Wow. Bob Marley. My grandma.
Okay. Oh, that's a good
one. Dead or alive.
Dead or alive. Yep, dead or alive.
Bob Marley. My grandma. Gandhi.
Oh, okay.
And Nafanua, who is a Samoan warrior.
Oh, the warrior, Nafanua. Yes. Oh, wow. Oh, that's a cool. Very powerful. That'd be very powerful dinner. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty gangster.
That's pretty gangster. That's gangsta. No. Third one, a favorite teammate.
Oh, favorite teammate, man. That's hard for athletes, that.
Yeah, it is.
That's favorite teammate. Probably. Actually, I'll go with. That's pretty hard.
Yeah,
I had a lot of favorites. I'll go with my cousin Joe Vagana. So when we're coming through, we're 3 weeks apart, but he was like a man child when he was like 5. So he always made the teams before me. Mm-hmm. So he gave me drive, I guess, in the early years. Actually, even when we played for New Zealand together. It was great to be able to do it with someone that we used to sleep on the couch, and pretend we were asleep on Sunday morning when his mum used to try and wake us up for church. Those are things. And she'll go, I know you're not sleeping.
I know, exactly. Yeah.
Those ones, these ones.
Yeah, with the boomerang. There goes the boomerang.
So, probably Joe.
Okay. All righty. The fourth one, what's the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I've ever received. Don't show off. Ooh. And that was from my dad when I was about 15 or 16, because we played in a school game and they did a write-up and they had a photo of me in the local paper. And everyone was excited about it. And my dad didn't really say too much. He wasn't a man of many words.
Yeah.
And my sister said to, I think my sister, they were talking about it over breakfast or something. Dad, look, Nigel's in the paper, And he's just looking at it and he goes, don't show off. Back to the porridge, back to eating breakfast. But I think since then, it tried to keep me humble along the way and keep me grounded. So that was probably that was an early one.
Nice. Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. Fifth one. What's the biggest lesson you've learned in the past 12 months?
Your loved ones won't always be around.
Oh.
So, because I stepped down from my role. I left work about a year and a half ago. All the sort of stuff that we were talking about.
Yeah.
Because I was getting quite busy and I was actually losing time with the family. You know, kids were growing up fast, and you can't get that time back.
Yeah.
So they're not going to be around forever. You know, so I'm now sort of just looking at a couple of projects here and there, but I want work to revolve around family, not the other way around.
Yeah.
And I think for a lot of us, especially a lot of our Pacific communities that don't come from wherever, we'd always put family around work. Yeah, I can't go to this, I've got to go to work.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll come to your birthday tomorrow because I've got to go to work. You know, oh, right, I'll see you guys in the morning. Oh, I'll see you after school tomorrow. I won't be here in the morning because I'll be at work. You know, we always prioritize work. So I want to flip the script, turn it upside down, prioritize our family.
Wow. No, that's very powerful.
That's what I've been doing the last 12 months.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
which is
cool.
awesome. You know, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
it's been awesome. Gotta live today.
Heck yeah, like we mentioned earlier. No, thank you for sharing that. So last question. You know, I want to continue to highlight our Pasifika athletes. Who is someone that you'd like to see on the show?
I would like to see a guy named Richard Brown, led by Richard Brown, played NFL.
Richard Brown.
Have you heard of him?
Is he older? Is he like the older generation?
He's OG.
OG. Okay,
Yeah.
Richard Brown.
And you know much about Suge Knight?
Not much, but I mean, I know who Suge Knight is, but
you know how he tried to get into football?
Oh no, I didn't. No.
You need to speak to Richard Brown.
Okay.
It'll be a good story. It'll be a good.
Really? Okay.
I don't know if he'll speak. I don't know if he'll speak there. If you can't get Rich, if you can't get him, because he's back in Samoa now.
Oh, Richard. Okay.
Yeah. Actually, he probably won't speak to you. Not you, but he doesn't speak.
Yeah. No. Of course. Yeah.
But it'd be cool. I'd like to hear from either Troy Polamalu.
Oh my gosh, that's a work in progress. I'm working on it.
Troy would be good, I think, for the community.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And Cedric Sabalos.
Cedric
NBA.
Cedric Sabalos.
Yeah, did he play NBA a few years ago? Someone told me he had Pacific. He had Pacific background. Or the other guy in the NBA. He went to Chicago. What's his name? Jabari.
Oh, Jabari Parker.
Yeah,
gosh, he's hard to get a hold of. You know, I'll have to reach out to Peyton Siba.
It's not hard. You just haven't gone through the right processes yet.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I just need to get connected to the right people. I'll ask Peyton Siba. I'll ask Peyton Siba if he knows, if he has a connection.
Yeah.
Are those? Thank you for naming 3 people. I really appreciate it. So I guess.
I mean, just because down here we see a lot of the athletes down here, but we don't hear about it much up there.
Yeah.
But maybe up your ways, you don't hear much about the ones down here.
Yeah, of course.
You know, no. We got plenty down here if you need to.
Oh yeah. We need. I need your help getting Sunny Bill.
Honest, I spoke to him yesterday.
Oh my gosh, Nigel, we've talked about this. We're trying.
Did we?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, sorry. He's gone back today.
I would love to.
He's a busy man.
It's okay. I only need like 30 minutes.
I think you'll get it. Yeah.
I would just need 30 minutes. 35.
Yeah. All right.
And then it's just, it's through Zoom.
30 or 35.
30. Can we just make it 40 to be safe? No, like legit, like Nigel.
He's got a few things here on the. Oh yeah, okay, we'll see.
Nigel,
I can't promise. I'm not gonna promise you.
Okay, I know.
I thought you really spoke to someone else.
It was Via. It was Via. Via has been my only other rugby player. Via Fafita.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Did he have a bad finger?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Remember, we looked and there was no bad finger. Okay, Sunny Bill.
Oh, sweet.
I'm gonna hound you.
You get the others.
Okay.
You get the others.
Okay. No, for real, I will. But Nigel, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You're a
Sweet.
legend. You're a legend. And I just want to say
just me.
thank you. No, thank you just so much for joining me on my show. You know, you have so much wisdom, so much knowledge, and I'm just so grateful to have you here. And, you know, just by people listening to your story, you know, and everything you've mentioned on this chat, you know, I just wanted to inspire our community. That's all I want, you know, overall this show to inspire our community. So I just want to say thank you for joining me on my show. And thank you all for tuning into Inside the Grind. Oh, okay.
I got one more thing.
Oh, one more.
Which is probably something good for your show. Because you know your show, is it only for Pacific athletes?
Pasifika, yeah.
Big athletes, yeah. Because I think it'd be good for you and your show.
Yes.
To ask the athletes where their connection is to the Pacific. You know what I mean? What their background is.
What is your
Because like say for me, I'd always thinking, you know, whenever I go, you know, my mum's from Whasiko in Samoa, Whasiko Uka. Spent a bit of time growing up at Utule and Pango in American Samoa.
Oh wow!
And my dad's village is Samakau, and out around the back Whalake and a few other places. But when you say that, it's like other people watching can make that connection. So I don't know if you did it with some of your other.
Yeah,
guests,
no, I haven't.
I think it'd be good for you to start from now.
Yeah, no,
you know?
thank you. Thank you for mentioning that.
Because then they connect, and they might go, I'm from Tonga, I'm from this village, you know, in Vava'u, or you know, I'm from Micronesia, I'm from PNG, wherever.
Man, no, thank you for that.
Pasifika show, you know?
Yeah,
you got to bring it back. Got to take it back home, man.
Thank you. I know you're so right. You know, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. But no, thank you, Nigel, again for being on this, my guest on this show.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, yeah. No, this has been great. I really appreciate it. But no, thank you.